Hey guys, thanks for tuning into what is going to be the first video here on Review Club. Real quick before we jump into it, this channel is going to focus on reviews, yes, but also going to be kind of more or less critiques on certain things related to video games. So with that being said, I wanted to get the first video out here, which is on a magazine that I recently picked up by Edge. I wanted to offer up my opinion real quick on what I considered to be an interesting, to say the least, read on its take on the games of the decade. So I guess we're just gonna jump right into that real quick, and to let you guys know, I also am gonna put my own personal opinion up on this of games that I think should have kind of been included in this list. So one thing that I want to tackle is how I feel like it's just kind of really lacking as a list, but we'll get into greater detail on that. First and foremost, I do want to give credit where credit is due. The actual magazine itself and some other ones I've picked up from Edge are actually pretty good. Some of their coverage in this issue in particular is it's definitely worth checking out, because it does cover a lot of relevant up and coming games, some of which I wasn't even actually aware were going to be coming out in the near future. So it was really cool to actually get some insight into it. And I'm not really going to be going into great detail on the games that they picked. I'm just going to kind of offer up my opinion on whether or not I think that they should even be, picked over some of the other games out there that could be seen as, games of the decade. So with that being said, let's hop right into it. So the first one that we have here is Amnesia Dark Descent. I personally have never played an Amnesia game. I know, however, though, its influence, especially when it came to streaming and gaming in general, can't be understated. So I agree with this game being in here, because I do think that even though I personally don't have an interest in playing a game like Amnesia, I understand that it is a game that a lot of people out there have a lot of respect for. And it did considerably well. I believe the Dark Descent to be maybe the first one, I want to say, in the series. So clearly it did well enough that there are other games. And yeah, really don't have anything to say about that one. Again, I apologize if any of what I just said is not all that accurate, because Amnesia is not a game that I really care to play, but it's great that they acknowledged it. And it's also great that they acknowledged a game that came out back in 2010. So, they literally are taking the whole decade into consideration, which is awesome. Right, so the next game that they have on here is Broken Age. And I love seeing Broken Age on here. I'm a big fan of most of the games that Tim Schafer has done, especially Day of the Tentacle and Grim Fandango. But if there's one thing that I feel is kind of off about this whole thing, is putting it on a list of greatest games of the decade of 2020, which, by the way, is only a handful of games. It's not like this is a list of like 50 or 100 games, which honestly is probably what they should have done. This is a list of I want to say there's only 12 games here, so I'm kind of going through this, I'm kind of doing this piece for piece here. I haven't really, pre-prepped any of it, just kind of jumped right into this. So I'm going to say there's probably 12 games on here. And it's weird. It's weird because those 12 games fit within a very odd, decision that the company made to include a 2020 calendar in it. I know that's not a new thing. A lot of magazines like to do calendars. But it's almost like they specifically picked 12 for that extra gift. That's what the magazine was banking on and selling itself on, was having. So it's all very weird, because it doesn't feel like the right way to approach doing a list of the best games of the decade, with it in mind that you're going to be selling a calendar. Again, it's a company, it's a magazine company. They got to sell their magazine, so I don't hold it against them for that. But by and large, Broken Age it's a good game. It's a very good game. I don't think that I would consider it to be, picked over so many other games, but I do like that it is in here. I will say that much. And the next one's kind of hard to argue. It's Dark Souls. Nobody's gonna. I mean, like, Dark Souls probably belongs on this list more than just about any other game I can think of that is on this list, because it literally just kind of changed the way that games were played in a lot of respects. You know, we all thought for a while that video games were, getting easier. There were more checkpoints. There was, armor and shields that would regenerate. You essentially didn't ever have to worry about lives anymore. You would just respawn at the last checkpoint. It was nice to see something come along that, like, drastically kind of changed the whole like landscape of gaming in that respect. But personally, I don't care for Dark Souls. I've played Dark Souls-like games. Can't get into them. I'm not particularly good at them. And at the same time, I've never been a fan of any mechanics in games that suggest you have to die to progress. Like that, it's a natural sort of thing to expect it, to the point where, there are memes out there, tell people just to kind of get good at playing these games, and it's like, no, I shouldn't have to. Like, when I died in a game back in the day, yes, it was skill-based, but I didn't feel like I had to die to figure out what to do. I usually died because, like, I made a mistake. And I played a lot of old games. I'm an older gamer. So, when you're playing a game that you have to kind of die to, like, get what you're doing, and you're probably going to die several times over, people telling you to get good at it, essentially the whole Dark Souls format, and so many other games since then have built upon that format. It's cool to see tough games like that, but at the same time, I don't personally need to play a game that's going to make me feel like I need to keep taking steps backwards to eventually take steps forward. So that's where, for me personally, Dark Souls doesn't really work, but I can see it needs to be on a list like this. It has been very impactful to the world of gaming in general. It's a solid entry on here. I can't really complain about it being on this list. By the way, if there's any creaking sounds that end up getting caught on the audio for this video, my apartment has very creaky floors, so I'm walking around while I make this video, just in case anybody's wondering where those random sounds are coming from. Yeah, that would be why. So the next one that they have on the list is Destiny, and I don't know how I feel about Destiny being on this list. I understand, especially with Destiny 2, that it's popular. A lot of people play it. I get that. But as it even makes mention of in this article, Destiny kind of sort of established the whole games as a service kind of format, and I'm so not a fan of things like that. So in general, I'm not the biggest fan of first-person type games to begin with. I kind of like being able to see my character. I don't feel the need to live vicariously through another character or another person. That essentially is just an avatar for me to be in that world. I'd rather it be a fully fleshed out, fully developed character. Again, probably just what I grew up with, but, I try and play these other games, and every once in a while, they work, but a game like Destiny has had little appeal to me. I was already on my way out from playing games like Halo, and, granted, Halo had a strong character in Master Chief. Destiny just didn't. It did absolutely nothing for me. So seeing it on this list, knowing that it wasn't a game that worked for me very well, I understand that it did work well for a lot of other people, but I don't know that what I had read, quickly from the article really makes it a quality kind of game. Again, at least in terms of it being picked over so many other ones, I don't think I would have put it on there. Especially when I feel like, a game like Destiny 2 has such a massive following, from what I've read up, that why would you pick Destiny, the first one, especially something that established the games as a service format that I think a lot of people just don't really want to see be a thing. So it's odd. It's odd to me that it's on here, but it is, and that is what that is. So the next game on this list is Dota 2. and I'm going to be completely honest again, here's another one that I really don't care all that much about. I understand that it's a very popular game, but interestingly enough, when I read the article for this one, it didn't feel like they were saying anything about how great the game actually was. It was a bizarre sort of celebration of what the game means. And that to me is kind of what I feel like the journalists who wrote the articles for this whole piece in Edge magazine, like, felt that they needed to kind of bookend everything rather than sit there and tell you specific things that they liked or thought were great about the game. Like, I always used to sit there and think it was cop-outs for, like, developers to, well, not developers, people in magazines or people that worked, I guess, on a magazine to sit there and say, hey, why don't we make an article where you just talk about your thoughts and your memories and your feelings, you know, towards the game. I used to think that was such a cop-out. But now I look at, like, this article and how it basically just talks about the evolution of the series and what it did for it, and, you know, about the company that worked behind it and how it started off as a Warcraft 3 mod and all these other things. And I'm like, I don't really need, like, a history of how this came to be. I need to know why it is it's such a great game. Like, I don't necessarily need to be, like, sold on it, because I'm not going to go play the game. But, like, explain to me, like, what is it? Is it the characters? Is it the world building? Is it specific locations? Is it specific, you know, clans or groups of individuals or communities? Like, there didn't seem to be a lot of that. At least from what I read, it was very surface level. And if Dota 2 is such an amazing game like that, I feel like they should have been able to pick those things out of it. And again, this is where I think a game like that doesn't really do very much for me. And a lot of Dota-style games haven't, because I need to feel, you know, I need to feel the impact of those things in my games. You know, the decisions that I make, the people I meet, the things that I do, you know, even if it's going to be straightforward, simple gameplay, I need to want to do that over and over and over and over again. And again, maybe that works for certain people in the world of Dota 2, but for me specifically, it's not going to, so that's another one on here that, like, I definitely understand it way more than I understand Destiny being on here, but at the same time, it's not something that I personally would want to see, again, picked over so many other games on this list. Okay, next up, they have the one game that I'm sure needs absolutely no introduction for anybody, and that is Fortnite. So, what can I say about Fortnite that hasn't already been said by everybody else? Look, it's Fortnite. It's the game now. It's essentially what Call of Duty was like 10 years ago. It's the game everybody is playing and everybody talks about. And even I dabbled in playing Fortnite for a little bit. And while I don't think Fortnite is a bad game per se, Fortnite is a game that it's just, to me, it doesn't stand very well, like, on its own merit. It totally took off with the whole free-to-play Battle Royale thing because it absolutely has its strengths in multiplayer. Where it didn't really grab me was I could never get the controls down very well. It felt very awkward. I kind of felt like I wanted to just sit there and build stuff. And again, maybe this is just me. This was a long time ago. This was probably, I don't even know, like 2 or 3 years ago at this point, like when it was still kind of a new and fresh thing. Like, I would spend a lot of time just sitting there and trying to figure out what it was that I liked about the game, because I didn't always run into very skilled players, but when I did, I would just get killed, and it wouldn't be very fun. So it was like I wasn't getting anything different out of that game than I felt like I would out of any other style of shooter, where it was like that was basically what was going to happen to me, is I was either going to approach people that were going to be really easy, and then people who were just going to destroy me. There didn't seem to be anybody on my level. And I had one friend that I actually played the game with for quite a bit, but that kind of tapered off as we realized, or at least as I realized, I guess, that I was going to have fun playing other games a lot more. So for me, Fortnite being on here, that's fine. I mean, it is a game that has, you know, I don't even know how to say it, just like a universal amount of appeal. So it makes sense. It's a cultural juggernaut. It's on here, and I'm okay with that. I personally don't really care for it, but I'm okay with it. So the next game that they have on here is called Gone Home, which is really awesome to see get a lot of recognition. Gone Home is a lot of what I look for in video games. It's very different. It's very atmospheric. It's great storytelling. I think the only issue that I feel that I had with the game is that it kind of tries to treat itself as a horror game, and it really isn't. It's a very different type of game that, like, without getting into spoiler territory, I can't really tell, like, anybody who hasn't played it what to expect from it, other than just you don't know what you're getting into. Like, is it gonna be like, oh wow, like flashy, like ridiculous video game type stuff? No, it's not. It's an indie game through and through. It is very much story driven. It is kind of all about just you know, getting into the world of the character and what's going on and why there's nobody home and why it is that they're coming home to such an empty house. Like, all that stuff, like, you have to kind of figure it out. And it's fun because, again, you know, atmospheric storytelling when done right in gaming like this is an amazing thing. And it's great to see them put it on this list. But again, this is one of those times where I'm going to be like, if you were doing more than 10 or 12 games, put it on the list. I don't think I would have picked it. Like, it's almost as if there's an attempt to try and be somewhat different with this list, but at the same time, it feels like it's playing up to a lot of the industry standards as well. So, like, this and Broken Age are like the games that are supposed to reach that deeper audience like myself that doesn't want to read about, you know, Destiny and Fortnite. But at the same time, I love that it's on here. I love that this game is on here. I don't have anything more to say about it. Next game that they have on their list is Grand Theft Auto 5. Look, it's Grand Theft Auto 5. Like, if you're a gamer, you play Grand Theft Auto. I don't know that there's anybody that has an interest in video games that doesn't respect what it is that GTA on a whole has done for the world of gaming. I mean, this game is so much fun. It's such a step up from the fourth in terms of bringing you back to everything that was enjoyed about, you know, the trilogy for PlayStation 2, about 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. It really kind of brought you back to the awesome sort of cultural kind of vibes that you got off of the world that it was satirizing. Like, I don't know of any other way to put it than that. Like, you had to really, you didn't have to get it, but you had to really just give yourself to the world of GTA. And that was so easy to do. It was so easy to do because it was a game that just kind of, it let you do whatever you wanted to do. It was so much fun, and I wholeheartedly agree with GTA 5 being on here. It is probably the most popular game, definitely the most popular franchise of the decade, but it's definitely a game that is very deserving of it, that I can say it doesn't really matter how commercial something is. When it's this good, it just kind of speaks for itself, and GTA 5 is definitely the type of game that does that. Okay, so I had to take a second and actually look at how many games they picked on this list, and it does actually look like they picked 12 games. So, again, with that being said, not really 100% on board with all these, but the next one, again, is another one that you just really can't debate. It's Minecraft. Again, this is another one that I didn't really spend too much time on, but I have a younger brother, and he was really into Minecraft, and I get the appeal of it because I really like designing and creating things in video games. What never resonated with me specifically for Minecraft was that I just don't care for the blocky aesthetic. Like, I don't. That's never really done all that much for me at all. I know it's a style choice, but I feel like it's a style choice that's almost... I don't want to say it's trying to sit there and take like a bad design and make it good, but that's kind of what it feels like to me. And I know that probably some people are not going to like that I say that, but it's my honest opinion. It's never worked for me. Within the world of Minecraft itself, I mean, I've seen people do amazing things. There are things that have blown me away. That game, right up there with GTA, is just undeniable in terms of its impact. I know people love it, and again, even I've seen some really creative stuff on there. I've even watched my brother do some pretty creative stuff too, so I understand the appeal of it. And at the same time, I kind of would probably put it on a list if I had it too, but for me in my personal list, it would be like on a top 100, because it's not a game I play a lot, but I feel like you have to acknowledge the impact that it's had. It's had an amazing impact for a game that should have essentially been like a tiny tool that was used to create and design things in like some small community on the internet. It's amazing that it turned into the massive phenomenon that it was, and kind of still is for some people. So yeah, that's on here, and again, I'm kind of okay with that. Alright, so the next one, kind of getting near the end here, is Spelunky, which, it's Spelunky. Look, this is another one of those games that I know people absolutely love, but there's something about this one, I don't know if it's just that the design and the aesthetics don't really work for me, or maybe I don't want to spend time playing a game where I'm digging underground. It doesn't speak to me. And, you know, I feel like it did really good, and it got a lot of people playing it, and it was really, you know, successful. But like, was it successful enough that it's a top 12 contender of games for the decade? Like, I don't know that I would. I mean, and we haven't even gotten into me talking about the games that I think should be on this list. I haven't even touched upon that yet, because when I do that, I hope I'm putting it somewhat in perspective what these games were picked over. So some of them seem like they were really safe picks. Other ones seem like they were an attempt to acknowledge video games that like didn't get the acknowledgement that maybe they should have. But Spelunky's kind of one of those games that like it fits very comfortably in the middle of that, because it definitely got recognition and it definitely did well. But is it the kind of game that I would say is like, again, top contender of game for the decade, to even be like in a top 12 or like a top 10, or would it be in a top 5? I don't know. I don't see the appeal of it. You guys can let me know, but this is one of those ones that I don't know. It shouldn't really be here. Again, like all the other ones, I kind of understand why it is, but no. Alright, one game closer to the end here. We have Zelda Breath of the Wild. Okay, wow. So Zelda and me have a turbulent relationship. I don't really care all that much for Zelda games, but I definitely have dabbled in them, and I really enjoy the character of Link in certain circumstances. Like, he's one of the main characters, I guess I'll say he's one of my mains for Smash Brothers, so I don't really, it's odd, because I don't really have a problem with him, per se, as a character in the Zelda world, being as he is, like, the main character, aside from Zelda in most cases, but at the same time, it's like, he doesn't really, like, appeal to me either. So, when I saw a game like Breath of the Wild, you know, I'm probably the only person in the world that picked up a Switch and did not pick up that game for it. So I have not played this game. With that being said, I'm sure I probably wouldn't mind the game. I wouldn't think it's a bad game, but I feel like it's, aside from GTA and aside from Minecraft, it's like the best game you could have put on this list, because it was an undeniable step forward for Nintendo when they released this game. This was one of those games that needed to be good, and I don't think it ever stood a chance of being bad, because, you know, Nintendo, it gets away with so much in the world of Zelda. Like, when you think about just how convoluted the storyline is, pretty much, like, people are willing to be extremely forgiving of Nintendo games when it comes to the storied aspects of them, because the quality of the gameplay is so top-notch that could all be overlooked. So it's interesting to me, you know, seeing a company be able to make it so far and strike it so rich with such an amazing, you know, wealth of games, especially in the Zelda series alone, you know, quality titles that even me, somebody who doesn't care to play Zelda games, can acknowledge. So, you know, with that being said, this is a game that needs to be on here. It does. And it's cool to see that it's here. And the last game that is on Edge Magazine's top games of the decade is The Walking Dead. Now, I enjoy these games. I actually kind of really enjoy Telltale's games all around, even the ones that aren't really that much quality. Like, when they released the game, I wanted to play it. Personally, I am way more of a fan of The Wolf Among Us. There's just a lot more that I enjoy about the world created in that game, and I actually even read some of the Fables graphic novels that it was based upon because it got me like that into it. The Walking Dead games were good, but they couldn't hold my attention all the way through. Like I could not, for the life of me, finish playing, all the episodes of the first season. And then I saw the second season, it looked really interesting, but I remembered I have to go back and play the first to jump into the second, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of one of those ones where it's like, again, it's great that it's on here, and I know that it is the most successful effort put forth by Telltale Games. It's a tough one for me to debate the legitimacy of on this list, but as a top 12, again, I gotta say, no, this is very weird to me, this list, now that we're kind of, we're capping it off with the 12th game now. It's like why, alright, I have to jump into the other games real quick here to kind of sort of illustrate my point. This is a little bit more what you should see in something, in my opinion, again, in like a top games of the decade. These games that I'm about to name off right now are games that when I think about games of the decade from 2010 through to 2019, to me, were the defining best games. And let me know if I missed some, because I'm sure I probably missed quite a few, but every single one of these games that I wrote down on here, I fully believe could be on this list, and some of which would probably be even better suited to it. So, games such as Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario Maker, Mario Kart 8, Persona 5, The Last of Us, Skyrim, really, where's Skyrim on the list? Borderlands, Fallout New Vegas, Until Dawn, Resident Evil 2, the remake, Devil May Cry 5, any Mortal Kombat game released since the reboot, Shadow of Mordor, The Outer Worlds, Cuphead, really surprised Cuphead's not on here, Catherine, Nier Automata, Heavy Rain, Journey, Portal 2, and Sonic Mania. All those games could be on a list like this. This was a list of 12 games done by a company that I consider to be a pretty respectable company. Their magazines are quality. They've released a lot of special edition versions of magazines. Why was something like this such a great concept for one of the single most defining decades in gaming, for both better and for worse? Why was this not its own issue? Why was this not something that was created and sold as a top 50 or top 100 list of games? Maybe it is and I'm not aware of it, because maybe where I bought this magazine there wasn't a copy of it. But I don't believe that they would do an abridged version like this and put as much effort into it as it seems like they did, and then do one that's expanded upon with all these other games and then some, because I could easily take the 12 that they put on the list along with however many I just named off and still have plenty of room to play around with other titles. I could even expand that out to like PC games, and include anything that's on Steam as well. I know that tends to not be what a lot of these magazines are more geared towards consoles like to focus on, but this to me was just a real missed opportunity. This was something really great that a company that has the resources to make such a great, article like this, such a great feature like this, just wasted it on what I think are some pretty safe bets for the most part, some ones that you know that you're going to see on every list of top games of the decade, but then other ones that feel like they were just really deep-cut personal picks that, again, are probably a little bit more there for like a top 50 or a top 100. They're not something that should be there for a top 12. So, hopefully you guys found this video to be interesting. Sorry it's a little bit on the long side. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I want the format on this whole channel to kind of be like. And again, I know this wasn't really a review, it was kind of a critique, and that's mostly what I'm going to be doing anyway. But thank you for taking the time to listen to this. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you enjoyed it, please like. Also, please subscribe. That'd be awesome. If you have any suggestions for me, let me know as well. This is Review Club. Thank you guys for your time. Have a great rest of your day. Let's all look forward to 2020.